Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Radha Radha.
Can I invert it?
What?
Invert it?
Whatever you want to do. Hold on, everyone. We're changing the rules. I don't even see it. This is in the way. That's in the way. Okay, hold on, everyone. And the microphone should be in that bag.
Yep.
We interrupt this program for technical difficulties.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
What's the verse? 7:35. 735. Yada graha grasta iva kvachit. That's the right verse. 735.
Dasha, Shad, Dashati.
Yada graha grasta iva. Yeah. Okay.
Akrandate.
Jayani Bandate Janam Muhu Sasan Swasan Bhakti Hare Jagatpate Narayanyati Ayanyanyati, excuse me, Narayanati Atma Matir Gata Trapaha Yada Graha Grashto Iva Kvachid Dasyati Da Graha Grasta Iva Kvachid Dasyati Akrandate dhyayati vandate janam dhyayati vandate janam muhu swasan bhakti hare jagatpate swasan bhakti hare jagat narayanit-yatma matir-gata trapaha yada graha grashta Iva kaschidasati Iva kachidas Akrandate dhyayati vandate janam Muhu swasan bhakti hare jagatpate Narayanit-yatma matir-gata trapaha Yada graha grashta iva kvachidashyati Akrandate dhyayati vandate janam Dhyayati vandate Muhu swasan bhakti hare jagatpate Narayanit-yatma matir-gata trapaha
Yada graha grasta eva kvachidasati Akrandate dhyayati vandate janam
Krandate dhyayati vandate janam
Muhushvasan bhakti hare jagatpate Narayane tyatma matir-gata trapa
Yada graha grashta iva kvachidasati Akrandate dhyayati vandate janam Muhu swasam bhakti hare jagatpate Narayanit-yatma matir-gata trapaha Yada graha grashta iva kvachidasati
Akrandate dhyayati vandate janam Muhushvasan bhakti hare jagatpate
Ladies, grahagrashta iva kvachidasati. Muhu shasan bhakti hare jagatpate. Atma matirgata trapaha. One more, brave lady. Mahagrasta iva kvachita sthiti. Khandate dhyayati vandate janam. Muhusvasan bhakti hare jagatpate. Narayaniti atma. Word meanings. Yada, when, grahagrastaha, haunted by a ghost. I think graha means grabbed, so it's kind of like grabbed by a ghost. Eva, like, kvachit, sometimes, hasati, laughs, akrandate, cries loudly, remembering the transcendental qualities of the Lord. Jayati, meditates. Bandate, offers respect. Janam, to all living entities. Thinking all of them to be engaged in the service of the Lord. Muhu, constantly. Swasan, breathing heavily. Bhakti, he speaks. Hare, O my Lord. Jagatpate, O Master of the whole world. Narayana, O Lord Narayana. Iti, thus. Atmamati, fully absorbed in thoughts of the Supreme Lord. Kata trapaha, without shame. When a devotee becomes like a person haunted by a ghost, he laughs and very loudly chants about the qualities of the Lord. So it doesn't actually mean he's haunted by a ghost. I have to explain it. It means he actually has love of Krishna. But some ordinary people may think it looks like he's haunted by a ghost. Even when a man falls in love with a woman, sometimes they become so crazy, sometimes you think, what happened to this person? Isn't it? They're so different. So it's talking about, it's actually haunted by love, not by a ghost, just so we get the context. Sometimes he sits to perform meditation and he offers respect to every living entity, considering him a devotee of the Lord. In other words, considering everyone else to be a devotee. Constantly breathing very heavily, he becomes careless of social etiquette and loudly chants like a madman, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, O my Lord, O Master of the universe. So why don't we repeat this? When a devotee becomes like a person haunted by a ghost, he laughs and very loudly chants about the qualities of the Lord. Sometimes he sits to perform meditation. And he offers respects to every living entity. Considering him a devotee of the Lord. I think that's a mistake. I think it's supposed to say considering them devotees of the Lord. That makes sense. I think so. It's confusing because it sounds like he's considering himself a devotee. Yeah. It means he considers everyone else but himself a devotee. Yeah. Constantly breathing very heavily. He becomes careless of social etiquette. And loudly chants like a madman. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa. O my Lord, O Master of the universe. Purport. When one chants the holy name of the Lord in ecstasy, not caring for outward social conventions, it is to be understood that he is Atma Mati. In other words, his consciousness is turned toward the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, sometimes in our books, you will read about a state called madness, mada. A devotee goes mad. It's not a bad madness, it's a good madness. It's a madness of love, it's a madness of intoxication and love. So, Lord Chaitanya was given the Hare Kṛṣṇa mantra, as you know, by his spiritual master. He chanted the mantra and he came back to his spiritual master a few days later and said, "This mantra has made me crazy. Am I chanting it wrong?" And his spiritual master said, "Oh, this is very good." And one of my godbrothers told me that his spiritual master told him, he said, "Actually, this state that you've achieved, this state of bhav, prema, we read about it in Scripture, but we've actually never seen it. We've never seen prema. We've read about it. These are the symptoms. But now we're seeing the symptoms in you. This is amazing. Congratulations. You've actually achieved the goal." And then, so someone might say, but if you chant Hare Kṛṣṇa and you become mad, how can you function in this material world? Well, the answer is, we're going to become mad about something. And the meaning of madness here is intense affection, intense attachment. Right? Yes? Now, if you're into something, you can become mad about it. There's a devotee, a friend of mine. He's very into music. He has 18 guitars, and I think 2 bass guitars. So he's madly in love with music. And so he's got a guitar for every occasion. And obviously there's so many examples when you're madly attached or in love with something, you become a little weird. Like, you're into photography and you have like 14 different cameras, and this one's for 1 o'clock and this one's for 4 o'clock and this one's by the water, and this lens, when it's cloudy, and it's like, and if you don't know anything about photography, you'll think, this person just spent like $25,000 on lenses and cameras. They're crazy, isn't it? The average, and he's not thinking he's crazy, he's thinking, I've got some good cameras and lenses, I can take some good photos. Or I can make money with this. So whenever there's extreme attachment, it tends to look like a little bit like a kind of craziness. Why are you so into this? Or when we were young and we would go surfing, we'd get up very early in the morning. It was the best time to surf. Or in your country, skiing, you must get up early, right? The powder is fresh, you can be the first one down the mountain as soon as the sun rises. Something like that. And if you're not careful, you can break your knee, your ankle, right? Isn't it common? Yeah. So I don't ski, and when I hear about that, I think that sounds like madness. That you would risk injuring yourself, and you'd get up so early, and it's so cold, and right? No, but out of love, you do it. So to me, it's madness. To you, it's love. So Lord Chaitanya's so-called madness was his love for Krishna. And he was chanting this mantra, and because he had love for Krishna, he couldn't stop chanting. Just like in this world, when you love someone or you fall in love, you can't stop thinking about that person, isn't it? And you can't stop talking about, I just met this amazing person today. He's so strong and smart and handsome. And it's just like, I met this girl, she's so sweet and special. I never met anybody like that. I just can't stop thinking about her, right? And sometimes people say, you only chant Hare Kṛṣṇa, why don't you chant something else? And I say, well, if you're in love with Susan, you don't sing songs to Patty. You only sing songs to Susan. So it's like that, Krishna, Krishna. I can't stop chanting Krishna, Krishna. Why? Because I'm in love with Krishna, not Patty, not Shiva, not Durga, or Ganesh. I'm in love with Krishna. I can't stop. I'm sorry, excuse me. I'm in love with Krishna. I can't stop chanting Hare Krishna. I'm sorry if that bothers you. So Mahaprabhu he can't stop chanting, and he said, like what's going on here? And he's telling his guru, and there's all these crazy things are happening to my body. Eruptions of hair and tears are coming out like fire hoses, out of my eyes. It's like I could, send me to the scene of a fire. I could put it out with my tears. And my limbs they're going inside my body, and I'm rolling on the ground. And okay, so how do we understand that? All right, when someone falls in love, they exhibit not maybe those extreme symptoms, but similar, right? They say, this is just statistical research, a person who is in love, who falls in love, is less proficient on their job than a person who smoked 1 or 2 joints of marijuana. Because they're, I was just thinking about that person, and they can't focus. So what we see in this world, then Mahaprabhu is exhibiting that with Krishna. So now you can imagine, if you're feeling that crazy, that attached, that mad for someone here, then what about for Krishna? So intensify that, like 100 times, 1,000 times, 10,000, 100,000. And then you see Lord Chaitanya, he looks mad because the love is so intense. I'm Prabhu, I'm madly in love with Bhaktin Betty. Madly in love, yeah. So Mahaprabhu is madly in love with the holy name and madly in love with Krishna. But because Krishna is so much more attractive, the madness is more intense. So when he went to his spiritual master and he said, I'm mad, his spiritual master said, he didn't say, can I shake your hand, congratulations, but if you want to make it, Hollywoodize it, that's basically what happened. Congratulations. You're there, pilgrim, you've reached it, you've got it, ecstasy in chanting the holy name. So, and then here it says, he doesn't care, but I would say he's probably not even aware. To say he doesn't care is another way of saying he's not even aware. He's chanting and, you're in love and the lover and the beloved are walking down the street. They're oblivious to everything, isn't it? They don't know. It's snowing out, it's cold, they don't have proper clothing. They don't even notice. They're walking, they walk right past their house 1 mile. They don't even notice. It's just like, so it's something like that. Mahaprabhu is in love. He doesn't notice what people think or care. Who cares what they think? I'm in love, right? So, I want to focus on one thing that's said here. When a devotee achieves love of Krishna, it says here, he offers respect to every living entity, considering everyone else a devotee. Now this is so interesting. Number one, it's so interesting because we can't relate to it, seeing everyone else as a devotee. Everyone's a devotee but myself. Well, the first thing we know is we're devotees, we're trying to be devotees, and we know that everyone in Montreal is not a devotee. Some people are and some people aren't. So to see everyone as a devotee except yourself, that's interesting, isn't it? Because if we did our research, we would find in Montreal there's like 326 devotees. And I wear tilak and I get up in the morning and chant Hare Kṛṣṇa. If you chant Hare Kṛṣṇa, you're a devotee. So I'm one of those 326. We wouldn't get this information that everyone in Montreal is a devotee except one person. Me. Everyone else is a devotee. We wouldn't. So why is a devotee thinking that way? Well, a second-class devotee does not think that way. Second-class devotee sees some people are devotees and some aren't. If you don't see the ones who aren't, then there's nobody to teach. Because you're going to teach somebody who doesn't know. But if you think everyone's a devotee, there's no one to teach. So a second-class devotee thinks, I'm a devotee, you're a devotee, let's hang out together and let's go out and help people who aren't devotees. And let's worship Krishna. But the first-class devotee, when he achieves prema, love, he sees everyone's a devotee except me. And there's a story. I don't know if you've ever heard this story before, but it's very interesting. And it illustrates this point in the life of Srila Prabhupada. So one time, probably was 1968 or 69, Srila Prabhupada was encouraging the devotees to open temples. And he said, specifically, I would like it that you open 108 temples before I die, before I leave. So when I first became a devotee, that was the focus, opening temples. Book distribution hadn't really taken off. Little bit, not much, but opening temples, that was the big thing. Go open a temple. So after you've been a devotee for about a year, you and 3 other devotees would go somewhere and open a temple. That was kind of the plan. One of you would be the president, 3 would help. And, so you've been in the Bhakti program a year, okay, it's time, go to... when I was a young devotee in 1970, there were 6 temples. There were 17 temples in the world and 6 were in California. Because California, between Los Angeles and San Francisco, was making so many devotees, so they had this system. They would go out and start temples like that. Why am I talking about this? I completely lost track. What was my... Yeah.
You were 1 year in the movement.
Yeah, 8 months. Yeah, just turned 20. Yeah. Why am I making this point? I forgot.
Well, because the devotee thinks everyone else is a devotee, but not Prabhupada.
Oh yeah. Exactly. Thank you. So Prabhupada said, open 108 temples, and then Prabhupada said, then I can leave this world satisfied in knowing that I satisfied my guru, and then I can go to hell. That's Prabhupada's, pretty much exact words. I can leave this world satisfied knowing that my guru is pleased, and then I can go to hell. Now, could you imagine your spiritual master says that, do this seva, help me, so I can die and go to hell. What a shock. So naturally, I believe it was a devotee named Sudama, he said, Srila Prabhupada, if you're going to hell, we're going with you. And Prabhupada said, no, you are devotees. You're going to Vaikuntha. I am not a devotee, I'm going to hell. And so then you wonder, why would Prabhupada say that? Because he never said that before, and he never said it after. Because that moment he was allowing himself to experience love, prema. And on that level, that's how a devotee feels. And then you're sitting there thinking, how do I relate to this? And the answer is, probably you don't. But this is more like an academic study. This is so that you at least understand when a devotee says, I feel lower than a worm in stool. It's actually a manifestation of love. It's not some kind of psychological problem. What's wrong with this devotee? He needs a therapist. He feels lower than a worm in stool. Someone should talk to him. Now, if this brahmachari said, I feel lower than a worm in stool, we'd say, yeah, he needs therapy. But when you have prema and you say, I feel lower than a worm in a stool, that's how you feel. You actually feel that everyone else is a devotee except yourself. Okay, now let's come down to reality. Everyone come down from prema to where you're at now. Do you see everyone else as a devotee? Of course not. We have trouble seeing the devotees as devotees. Isn't it? I don't know, he wears tilak, but he doesn't really act like a devotee, right? Do we see ourselves not as a devotee? No, we have trouble seeing ourselves not as like, I'm a good devotee, I'm better than most devotees, In 5 years I'll be on top. That's our problem, isn't it? So that's why this is so difficult to understand. But we understand it's a manifestation of love, and this is what happens. As you evolve in your love of Krishna, you respect devotees more and more. You see yourself less as a devotee, and you see others more as a devotee. Now, we're thinking, wait a minute, if I see myself less as a devotee, I'll just become depressed, and I won't be enthusiastic, right? Oh, I'm not even a devotee. What's the use of getting up? That's material. That's material thinking, because we're thinking of it as a manifestation of an attitude that comes from material consciousness. This is spiritual consciousness. This is a manifestation of love. Isn't that interesting? When you have love of Krishna, you think you're not a devotee. When you have love of Krishna, you think you don't have it. When you don't have love of Krishna, you think you have it, or you're getting there, or you're coming close. So, this is not something any of us should try to imitate. It's just something we should try to understand. And to me, the main thing to understand is that as a devotee advances, he feels himself less and less a devotee, and more others are devotees. And as we stay in the neophyte, we think, oh yeah, Bhakti, Betsy, yeah, she'll be gone in 3 months. She's not really a devotee, I can tell. You just look at her. But I'll be here, you can count on me, I'll become a pure devotee, in a couple of years. That's how we think, right? That's a manifestation of a very low level of consciousness. And so that's what we learn from this. Now look at ourselves. And then it also says, not only do you see everyone as a devotee, but you respect all living entities. That's a huge statement. To respect all living entities, right? That means when you walk down the street, you have to look on the sidewalk to make sure you don't walk on ants, flies, or worms, if you respect every living entity. That's one thing. In fact, in the Bhagavatam, Prabhupada said, you cannot use pesticides because you should let the insects come and eat, because you can't prevent them from eating. That's sinful to use pesticides. Did you know that? Yeah, it's right in the Bhagavatam.
This is their natural
food, right? Natural. Then someone said, but what about us? How will we eat? Well, I'm not a farmer. Figure that one out later. But there's a story. The ants were on Prabhupada's plate, floating around the juice and whatever. And the devotee wants to get rid of the ants. And Prabhupada said, no, just leave them. They don't eat much. And then one time, there was some insect or something, worm or caterpillar or something, fly or some insect that was caught inside that needed to get outside. It was going to die inside. I don't know, maybe it was a frog. I can't remember. Something that needed water or something. So Prabhupada said, pick him up, put him outside, because otherwise, pick him up, put him out. It was a ladybug or something. Pick him up, put him outside on a leaf so he could eat. I mean, when was the last time you thought like that? You saw some insect in your room, you go, you have to take this guy outside and put him on a leaf because he could die inside. When was the last time you thought like that? Have anyone ever thought like that? Is that amazing, or is that amazing? You're worried about... And then, one time, I don't know, remember the details, the Prabhupada was... And there was some ant or something, and he was chanting to the ant. And then he turned to the devotee and said, if we could just make this ant Krishna conscious, our movement would be successful. So we could speculate what he meant, but since we're talking about all living entities, then we could speculate, yeah, if we could just have compassion for an ant, what to speak of everyone else, then our movement would become successful, if we had that kind of compassion. So, to respect all living entities, obviously you have to feel not above them, but below them. And the problem for us, to think, well, if I feel below all living entities, then I'll have to get a prescription of psychotropic drugs to recuperate. You know, I mean, that sounds like crazy. Like I would just be depressed. Prabhu, you walk in the temple, your head's down. Prabhu, what's wrong? He said, I feel lower than all living entities. You go, no, you've reached perfection. It's a symptom of perfection. It's not something you can artificially manifest. That's the point. So, we all know how Prabhupada traveled around the world, right? So, my wife and I were flying here yesterday, and we had just traveled a few weeks before, and a few weeks before that we had traveled a few weeks before, and every time we travel, it's like I feel like a tree that just got uprooted and replanted. And I was like, your day's going, and then it's got to stop, and you go, stop everything you're doing, put it in a suitcase. And whatever you're doing, it stops in that location, and it's like, and all of a sudden, you come and it's like 30 degrees colder here, and people are speaking a strange language. Excusez-moi, monsieur. Comment allez-vous? And it's like, you have to readjust. It's uprooting, right? So I was telling her, Jayapataka Maharaj, before he was ill, probably for 30 years, every 3 days, just travel to a new place. It's like inconceivable, right? Like every 3 days, new place, new place, new place, for 30 years. Maybe he'd stop somewhere for a week or two, once a year, but then... Why? Why did Prabhupada do that? Prabhupada was not at an age where it's really easy or healthy to travel. Traveling is very difficult. Why did Prabhupada do that? Because he had this respect, this compassion for every living entity. That you just saw that you're part of Krishna and you need Krishna, and I will give it to you. So when you feel that respect for all living entities, how do you respect them? You want to give them Krishna. And that's why Prabhupada just endlessly went. And anytime they tried to slow Prabhupada down, he wouldn't slow down. He said, Prabhupada, you should take it easy. Yes. But Prabhupada, you're working too hard. Yes. Get out of my room. Leave me alone. Let me work harder. Prabhupada, it's late. Maybe you should take a rest. Yes. Do we go on preaching? There were stories of Prabhupada who would fall asleep preaching. He'd say, Prabhupada, it's late. Maybe you want to stop, and he'd preach, and he'd lay down and just fell asleep. So when you have that attitude, then you can't stop, right? You just go, you go. And even there's so much inconvenience, you just go, you go.
Until you drop?
Yeah, basically, till you leave your body. Yeah. And even when you drop, you go. Prabhupada was translating. The body wasn't working, still he's translating. So we can stop here. Any questions or comments? Yes?
Yes, you were quoting Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, that I'm lower than a worm and stool. So I remember I was in the Ottawa temple, and one devotee gave me some compliment, thanked me for some service that I did. And so I had just been reading Chaitanya Charitamrita, and so I thought, I'll repeat what Krishnadas Kaviraj said. I said, no, Prabhu, I'm lower than a worm and stool. He was a new bhakta. He didn't know Vaishnava etiquette. I said, I'm lower than a worm and stool. He said, no. He said, you're lower than that. I saw my false ego rise up, and I thought, I wanted to say, you're not supposed to talk to me that way. But I didn't say anything. But I saw that my so-called humility was being tested.
Hare Kṛṣṇa. We should have a book, Hare Kṛṣṇa Comebacks. Someone says you're lower than a Mormon stool, say, no, that's not true. You're even lower than that. And the reason I was laughing is because you were trying to take this humble mood and immediately he caught you faking it. Hare Kṛṣṇa.
And I like your point about how Uttama Adhikari sees everyone as guru. I was speaking with our godbrother Guru Prasad Swami in the Rath Yatra in New York. And I said to him how sometimes in trying to help a younger devotee, you'll see that that younger devotee will not take instruction from someone other than their guru.
Mm-hmm.
You could be the godbrother of that guru, you slept on the same floor beside him, you snored at night, but now he's officially recognized in ISKCON as an official initiating guru, or you may have a danda, or and Jai Guru Maharaj, Jai Guru Maharaj. And if you come along and repeat the same thing, it's like, well, you're not my guru. So then, in response to that, Guru Prasad Swami said, a neophyte devotee only sees his Diksha Guru, that I can only take instruction from him. But he said, an Uttamadhikari sees everybody as his guru.
That's nice. And well, I'll tell you something amazing if we want to talk about humility. With Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he must have, how many disciples did he have? 5,000, 10,000 disciples? 60,000? What? 10,000. So he had 10,000. And he was asked, how many disciples do you have? And he said, I have 4. 2 arms and 2 legs. They do whatever I ask them to do. In other words, these 4 are my servants. Yeah, some water. Okay, here's water. Put the water down. Okay. Whatever I say, arms and legs will do. Now, what was his point? He said, the guru does not have disciples. He doesn't see his disciples as disciples, but he sees himself as a servant. So when asked, how many disciples do you have? He didn't say 10,000, he said 4. Because these are the only 4 that serve me, that I'm the master of. And Prabhupada said, I see all of you like my guru because you're teaching me how to serve my guru. Yeah, that's...
And Bhaktisiddhanta, when the disciple would approach him, he would say, Dasosmi.
Dasosmi, yes.
How can I help?
Also, he once said something amazing. He said, a Vaishnava does not criticize. Like, if you criticize, automatically disqualified, not a Vaishnava, all right? Take the V off your t-shirt, You're not a Vaishnava. That's pretty heavy. Anyway, we're speaking philosophy, theoretically. Vaishnavas don't criticize. It's not a symptom of a Vaishnava. And then he said, and the guru, his duty, according to Chanakya and other sources, the duty of the guru is to criticize, chastise, correct. And if you're guilty if you don't correct your disciples. So then he said, therefore the conclusion is Vaishnavas cannot become gurus. Because a guru must criticize and a Vaishnava can't criticize. Did you know he said that? No. And then he said, so how do we reconcile this? He said, we take up the service of guru as a service to the people who are, quote-unquote, our disciples. So we're never in the mood of guru. And we also take up the service to train other gurus. So I'm trying to help you, serve you, and help you become a guru. And as you said, Dasosmi, I always see myself as servant. So we cannot become guru. Now, there's one other story. This could be the most amazing story about humility you ever hear. This really takes humility, I think, as high as I've seen it. So, or maybe as in the top 3 highest manifestations. This is Srila Bhaktisiddhanta manifesting special kind of humility. So, there was a brahmachari in the Math, and he was a leading brahmachari. But it was found that he wasn't chanting his rounds, so they came to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and said, so-and-so brahmachari is not chanting his rounds. And either they wanted Srila Bhaktisiddhanta to talk to him, chastise him, get him to chant his rounds, ask him to leave if he doesn't, something like that. It was not the nature of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta to engage